380 homeless children just in the Boston area. God sees. Can you say God sees? Yes. The 3,800, almost 4,000 families in Boston who are a part of the homeless community. God sees. Can you say God sees? Yes. The 569 individuals who have been in shelters somewhere between 2 to 20 years. God sees. That's right. And well, that's instructive to me as I think about the fact that God sees. So when the invitation came to me to join the Boston Regional Network to end homelessness, that same God began to work in me and began to show me how God had been trying to help me to see the invisible homeless families and individuals for some time. Can you say see? See. In the invitation, suddenly it reminded me of a number of years ago when Hurricane Katrina happened, and the governor at that time asked me to coordinate the faith-based response. And as a result of that, we ended up at the Cape on a camp space at the Cape, and 2,500 individuals came in from New Orleans as a result of the flood, and among many things, they were homeless. I've never forgotten the image of standing there and watching people come off the planes, and they were, many of them still wet, still dressed in their wet pieces of clothes. They had bags, and what they wore was all that they had. They were, among many things, they were homeless, and they framed for me this image of the homeless. And when the invitation came, I remembered that picture, and then suddenly was inspired or driven or shocked or whatever the word is into recognizing that those 2,500 from New Orleans to Boston to Massachusetts is multiplied by the thousands who are here every day. And they are homeless. But I hadn't really seen it, you see, until the invitation came. When the invitation came, I was reminded of a young man by the first name of Antoine, who a number of years ago, he got kicked out of his house. And because he got kicked out of his house, me and my wife and our family, we took him into the pastor's mansion. We kept him for about 3 months and helped him to get himself situated before he transitioned on. Or I was reminded of a woman by the name of Crystal, who we have known over the years, but who also became homeless, her and her 2 daughters. And they moved in with us, and we agreed to take them in. And they stayed with us for 6 months until we got her health care issues taken care of and got her children educational issues taken care of. And when we got those issues taken care of, they were able to get back on their feet and go into permanent housing. Or I remembered my own brother-in-law. Can you say see? See. See, yes, see. I remembered my own brother-in-law, first name Hannibal, who about 2 years ago was homeless and was in trouble and was surrounded and chased by crime and addictions and abuses. And so we invited him and his wife and his 2-year-old and his 5-year-old and his 3-month-old baby to come live with us, and who actually lived with us for a year and a half while we made sure that he tended to his CORI record and began to deal with that, while making sure that he got some help for his substance abuse, while making sure that he got some counseling and some support for his other issues, while making sure that he found some employment, and doing the same for his wife. And after a year and a half, they were able to move out, actually leave Massachusetts, go to Nevada, and they are now homeowners. Can you say see? See. What God helped me to see when the invitation came to me was that God had been trying to get me to see over the last several years the significance and the importance of having a ministry that engages homeless individuals and homeless families, that in fact it's at the very core of what I should be doing and who I should be about. And so God helped me to see. Well, the text not only talks about God seeing, but then the text says God raises Can you say raises?
Raises.
Raises or lifts the poor and the needy and sets them with princes in places of dignity and empowerment and with capacity. It dawned on me. Here was another discovery as I looked at the text and thought about my own life. In order for God to raise the poor and the needy, in order for God to raise homeless families and individuals, God had to first, of course, see them. They had to become visible to God. Secondly, God had to actually touch them. Can you say touch them? Yes, God had to get involved with them. But before God touched them, I believe, God had to be touched by them. Can you say touched by them? Having seen them, this God who would touch them had to ultimately be touched by them, which means God saw them, God counted them, God knew their name, God was aware of the details of their narratives and their stories, that this God was touched by who they were and was then moved to touch them.
Amen.
I realized that while I have been busy, God had been trying to position me to be touched by homeless families and homeless individuals. Okay. You see, I had done a lot of work with healthcare, with the president of GBIO. One of our signature efforts was in the area of healthcare. And I'm very proud of the fact that because of the work with healthcare, almost 450,000 people who a few years ago did not have healthcare now have healthcare in the state of Massachusetts. But as I thought about that statistic, God reminded me that among those folk were people like a fellow by the name of Jim. Jim is from Dorchester. Every day, he waited in line with other homeless people for a shelter bed. Some nights, he got one. Other nights, he didn't. This was his routine for 1,800 days. As a result, he was sick and in the hospital all the time. Can you say all the time?
All the time.
But not all was lost for Jim. Somehow God was able to activate and organize people in home and healthy for good part of an organization, and they were able to put together a program, and they were able to reach out and help him. He was placed ultimately he found a bed, and then later he found permanent placement. Well, in my work for healthcare, there had been many Jims. I just hadn't seen them.